The bullet grazed Martha Ashford's left arm the same day. The town ladies decided she would never make a suitable wife. And somehow the second wound cut deeper than the first. She pressed her hand against the bleeding scrape, watching from behind the water trough as the bank robbers thundered out of Murphy's on stolen horses, their guns still smoking in the bright California sunshine. It was May of 1872, and Martha had been fetching supplies from the general store when the shooting started. Most women had screamed and fainted. Martha had pulled 2 children behind cover and stayed conscious through it all, which apparently made her more problems than she was worth. "Did you see her?" Mrs. Alina Pritchard's voice carried across the street as the dust settled. Standing there bold as brass while bullets flew, not a proper reaction in her body. "No maternal instinct," Mrs. Sarah Cunningham agreed, loud enough for half the town to hear. What kind of woman does not scream when faced with danger? It is unnatural. Martha felt her cheeks burn as she stood, her dark blonde hair falling loose from its pins, her practical cotton dress covered in dust. The scrape on her arm throbbed, but she ignored it. She had survived worse than a superficial bullet wound. She had survived the fever that took her parents 3 years ago, leaving her alone at 18 with nothing but their small house on the edge of town and her father's books. She had survived the whispers that started then about how she read too much, thought too much, and spoke her mind too often for anyone's comfort. "Miss Ashford, you are injured." Dr. William Morrison hurried over, his medical bag already open. He was a kind man in his 50s, one of the few people in Murphy's who treated her with consistent respect. "It is nothing serious," Martha said, but she let him examine the wound anyway. Around them, other townspeople emerged from their hiding places, chattering about the robbery with excitement now that the danger had passed. "You saved my Johnny," a quiet voice said. Martha looked up to see Mrs. Rebecca Torres, a Mexican woman who lived on the outskirts of town with her husband and 3 children. She was holding her 6-year-old son's hand tightly. "You pulled him and the Miller girl to safety. I saw everything." "Anyone would have done the same," Martha said. "But you did it, Mrs. Torres insisted, while others froze. Dr. Morrison cleaned and bandaged the wound efficiently. "You will want to change this dressing tomorrow. Come by my office if you need more supplies." Martha thanked him and gathered her scattered packages, aware of the continued stares and whispers following her down the street. She had lived in Murphy's her entire 21 years, and yet she remained an outsider. Too educated, too independent, too willing to help her neighbors with carpentry and fence mending instead of embroidery and gossip. The town had tolerated her oddities when her father was alive, but now they saw her as a problem without a solution. By the time she reached her small house at the end of Oak Street, her arm ached and her heart felt heavier than the packages in her arms. She set everything on the kitchen table and sank into her father's old chair by the window, staring out at the rolling California hills beyond town. She did not cry. Martha Ashford had learned long ago that tears solved nothing. The knock on her door came an hour later, just as the sun began its descent toward the horizon. Martha opened it to find Violet Henderson, the 23-year-old daughter of the town's wealthiest family, standing on her porch with an expression of barely concealed glee. "Martha, I thought you should know," Violet said, her voice dripping with false sympathy. "The ladies' social committee met this afternoon. We have decided to be honest with you, as Christian charity demands. You will not receive any more invitations to our socials or church gatherings where unmarried men might be present." Martha's stomach dropped. "I see." "It is for the best," Violet continued. "You are 21 now, and no decent man wants a wife who acts as you do. Better to stop wasting everyone's time with pretense. You are simply unfit for marriage, Martha. The sooner you accept that and perhaps find some useful employment as a seamstress or laundress, the happier everyone will be. The words landed like physical blows, but Martha kept her expression neutral. She would not give Violet the satisfaction of seeing her pain. Thank you for your honesty. Good evening, Miss Henderson. She closed the door before Violet could say anything else and leaned against it, breathing hard. Unfit for marriage. The words echoed in her mind, mixing with every other criticism she had endured over the years. Too bold, too strange, too different. She walked to the small mirror by the wash basin and studied her reflection. Brown eyes that held too much thought, a mouth that smiled too little. Features that were pleasant enough but unremarkable. Nothing about her appearance screamed her unsuitability. It was everything beneath the surface that made her unacceptable. Martha spent the evening trying to read, but the words blurred on the page. She finally gave up and went to bed, though sleep was slow to come. Tomorrow she would need to figure out how to continue living in a town that had officially declared her worthless. Perhaps she could save enough money to move somewhere larger, somewhere she might disappear into the crowds. San Francisco, maybe, or Sacramento. The next morning brought unexpected developments. Martha was tending her small vegetable garden when she heard horses approaching. She looked up to see 3 men riding toward her house, and her heart skipped when she recognized Vincent Holloway in the lead. Vincent Holloway was everything Martha was not. He belonged. At 25, he had already established himself as one of the most successful ranchers in Calaveras County, running a cattle operation 10 miles north of Murphy's with efficiency and fairness that earned respect from everyone who knew him. He was tall and broad-shouldered, with dark hair that curled slightly at his collar and green eyes that seemed to notice everything. He wore the practical clothes of a working cowboy, boots dusty from the trail, but carried himself with quiet confidence. Martha had seen him in town dozens of times over the years, but had never exchanged more than polite greetings with him. Men like Vincent Holloway did not waste time on women like her. Miss Ashford, Vincent said, touching the brim of his hat as he dismounted. His 2 ranch hands stayed mounted, both young men she recognized from church. I hope we are not disturbing you. Not at all, Martha said, wiping dirt from her hands on her apron. How can I help you, Mr. Holloway? I was in town yesterday during the robbery, Vincent said. I saw what you did, pulling those children to safety while bullets were flying. That took courage and quick thinking. Martha felt heat rise to her cheeks. I did what anyone would have done. No, Vincent said firmly. You did what most people would have been too frightened to do. I also heard what some of the town ladies said afterward. His jaw tightened slightly. I heard what Miss Henderson told you last evening. My ranch borders the Pritchard property, and Mrs. Pritchard was more than happy to share the committee's decision with anyone who would listen. Martha's embarrassment turned to humiliation. Of course, the town gossips had already spread the news of her official unsuitability. I appreciate your concern, Mr. Holloway, but I will manage. I have a proposition for you, Vincent said. I need someone to help manage my ranch household. My housekeeper retired last month and moved to San Francisco to live with her daughter. I have been trying to handle the cooking and cleaning myself while running the ranch, and it is not working. I can offer fair wages, room and board in the main house, and respectable employment. Martha stared at him. You want to hire me as your housekeeper? More than that, Vincent said. I need someone who can think independently and handle problems without falling apart, someone who stays calm in a crisis. Based on what I saw yesterday, you have those qualities. He paused, seeming to choose his words carefully. I also think you deserve better than to be dismissed by small-minded gossips who cannot see past their own limited understanding of what makes a woman valuable." The kindness in his words made Martha's throat tight. "Mr. Holloway, you should know that employing me might damage your reputation. The town has made its opinion of me quite clear." "The town's opinion does not pay my bills or run my ranch," Vincent said. "And frankly, Miss Ashford, I put very little stock in the opinions of people who judge others so harshly for having the courage to be different." Martha looked at her small house, at the garden she had been tending alone, at the empty windows that reflected her solitary life. She could stay here and slowly suffocate under the weight of the town's disapproval, or she could take a chance on something different. "When would you need me to start?" she asked. Vincent's face broke into a smile that transformed his serious features. "As soon as you can be ready. My men can help you pack and transport anything you want to bring. The house has plenty of room." "Give me 2 hours," Martha said. By noon, Martha was riding in a wagon beside Vincent, watching Murphy's disappear behind them. His ranch hands followed with another wagon carrying her belongings, which amounted to her clothes, her father's books, and a few pieces of furniture. Everything she owned fit into 2 wagon loads. It should have felt depressing, but instead Martha felt something she had not experienced in years: hope. The ride to the Holloway Ranch took them through beautiful California countryside, rolling hills dotted with oak trees and granite outcroppings. Vincent pointed out landmarks and boundaries, explaining the layout of his property with clear pride in what he had built. "I started with nothing 5 years ago," he said. "Worked as a ranch hand for old Mr. Peterson, saved every penny and bought this land when he decided to sell and move east. It has been hard work building it up, but worth every minute." "You have done well for yourself," Martha said. "The ranch has a good reputation." "I try to treat my men fairly and my cattle better than most," Vincent said. "A ranch is only as good as the people running it, and respect goes both ways." He glanced at her. "That is why I think you will do well here, Miss Ashford. You understand hard work, and you do not seem to need constant praise or attention to do what needs doing." Martha felt something warm unfold in her chest. When was the last time anyone had complimented her work ethic instead of criticizing her character? The ranch house came into view as they crested a hill, and Martha caught her breath. It was a beautiful 2-story structure built from local timber and stone, with a wide porch that wrapped around 3 sides. Outbuildings dotted the property: a large barn, a bunkhouse for the ranch hands, corrals, and various sheds. Everything looked well-maintained and purposeful. "It is beautiful," Martha said honestly. "Thank you," Vincent said, and she could hear the pride in his voice. "I built most of it with my own hands with help from the men. The house is bigger than I need for just myself, but I wanted something that would last, something I could be proud of." He helped her down from the wagon with careful courtesy, his hands steady and strong. Martha felt the touch linger in her awareness longer than it should have. She pushed the feeling aside. Vincent Holloway had hired her as his housekeeper, nothing more. He was being kind to someone the town had rejected. She would not make the mistake of reading more into his actions than professional generosity. The inside of the house was even more impressive than the exterior. The main room featured a large stone fireplace, comfortable furniture, and windows that let in abundant natural light. The kitchen was spacious and well-equipped. Upstairs, Vincent showed her to a large bedroom with its own wash basin and a view of the hills. "This will be your room," he said. "You have complete privacy. My room is at the other end of the hall. The door locks from the inside if that makes you more comfortable." "You do not need to worry about my comfort to that degree," Martha said. "I trust your character, Mr. Holloway." "Vincent," he said. If we are going to be living under the same roof, we should dispense with excessive formality. And I want you to feel safe here, Martha. That matters to me. The way he said her name, with simple respect and something else she could not quite identify, made her pulse quicken. She nodded, not trusting her voice. Vincent showed her the rest of the house, explaining his typical routine and preferences. He was remarkably organized for a bachelor rancher, with clear systems for everything from meal planning to laundry. Martha realized quickly that he was not exaggerating about needing help. Running a ranch of this size was enormous work, and trying to manage the household on top of it was clearly wearing him thin. I usually have breakfast before dawn, Vincent explained. The men eat in the bunkhouse, but they appreciate a hot midday meal brought out to wherever they are working. Dinner is typically just me, unless we have guests or I invite some of the hands up to discuss ranch business. I can manage all of that, Martha said. Though I should warn you that my cooking is practical rather than fancy. Practical is exactly what I need, Vincent said. I have been living on beans and burnt bacon for a month. Martha smiled despite herself, and Vincent's expression softened. It is good to see you smile, he said quietly. I got the impression yesterday that you do not have much reason to. The observation was too accurate, too personal. Martha busied herself examining the pantry to hide her reaction. I should take inventory of supplies and plan some meals. Of course, Vincent said. I will leave you to settle in. I need to check on the cattle in the north pasture, but I will be back by dinner time. If you need anything, my foreman Thomas Parker is usually around the barn. He is a good man, completely trustworthy. After Vincent left, Martha spent the afternoon organizing the kitchen and exploring her new home. Everything was clean but clearly neglected, awaiting a woman's touch. She found herself humming as she worked, something she had not done in months. The house felt peaceful, spacious, free from the judging eyes and sharp tongues of Murphys. By the time Vincent returned that evening, Martha had prepared a simple but hearty meal of roasted chicken, potatoes, fresh bread, and vegetables. She heard him washing up on the back porch before he entered the kitchen, his hair damp and his face showing the honest exhaustion of a hard day's work. "Something smells amazing," he said, hanging his hat on a peg by the door. "Is that fresh bread?" "It is," Martha said, setting the table. "I hope you do not mind that I use some of your supplies. I will need to make a list for the next time someone goes to town." "Use whatever you need," Vincent said. He paused. "Will you join me for dinner? I know you are the housekeeper, but I would appreciate the company." "It gets lonely eating alone every night." Martha hesitated. The arrangement was already unconventional enough without blurring the lines between employer and employee. But something in Vincent's expression, an honest loneliness that matched her own, made her nod. They sat across from each other at the large dining table, and for a few minutes they ate in comfortable silence. Vincent closed his eyes in appreciation at the first bite. "This is wonderful," he said. "I had forgotten what real food tastes like." "It is nothing special," Martha said, but she felt pleased nonetheless. "It is to someone who has been living on my cooking," Vincent said with a slight smile. He took another bite, then asked, "How long have you lived alone in Murphy's, Martha?" "3 years," Martha said. "Since my parents died of the fever." "I am sorry," Vincent said, and he sounded like he meant it. "That must have been difficult." "It was," Martha said simply. "They were good people. My father was a schoolteacher before his health failed. He believed in education for everyone, including daughters. My mother supported his views. They were considered eccentric by town standards." "And you inherited their eccentricity?" Vincent asked, but there was no mockery in his tone, only curiosity. I inherited their books and their beliefs, Martha said. And yes, their reputation. The town tolerated me while my father was alive, but after he died, I became a problem without a solution. A woman alone, educated beyond her station, with opinions she did not hide well enough. Yesterday was simply the official declaration of what has been true for years. Vincent set down his fork, his green eyes serious. The town is full of fools if they cannot see your value. You do not know me well enough to make that judgment, Martha said, though her heart beat faster at his words. I know you have courage, Vincent said. I know you think clearly under pressure. I know you do not waste time with false tears or vapors. And I know you have been kind to people the town also looks down on. Mrs. Torres is not the only one who has noticed your willingness to help those others ignore. Martha felt heat rise to her cheeks again. You seem to have been paying more attention than I realized. I notice things, Vincent said quietly. Especially things that matter. The moment stretched between them, charged with something Martha did not dare name. She looked down at her plate, breaking the connection before it could become too intense. They finished dinner with lighter conversation about the ranch and the surrounding area. Vincent proved to be an easy conversationalist, sharing stories about his work with genuine humor and intelligence. Martha found herself relaxing more than she had in years, laughing at his descriptions of stubborn cattle and unexpected mishaps. When the meal ended, Vincent insisted on helping her clear the table despite her protests. You cooked, he said. The least I can do is carry some dishes. You are paying me to cook, Martha pointed out. And I am choosing to help anyway, Vincent said. My mother raised me better than to let a woman clean up alone after she fed me, employment arrangement or not. They worked side by side in companionable silence, and Martha was acutely aware of his presence beside her at the wash basin, the easy way he moved in the space, the warmth that seemed to radiate from him. She told herself firmly that she was being ridiculous. Vincent was simply a kind employer. Nothing more. But when their hands accidentally brushed reaching for the same dish, the jolt that went through her suggested her heart had different ideas. The days that followed settled into a comfortable rhythm. Martha rose before dawn to prepare Vincent's breakfast, finding satisfaction in the simple domesticity of cooking for someone who appreciated it. She spent her mornings cleaning and organizing the house, slowly transforming it from a neglected bachelor residence into a proper home. In the afternoons, she prepared the midday meal and often rode out with one of the ranch hands to deliver it to wherever the men were working. Vincent was everything an employer should be: respectful, appreciative, and scrupulously proper. He never entered her room without permission, always knocked before coming into any room she occupied, and treated her with the kind of courtesy that Martha had rarely experienced from men. But there was something else too, a warmth in his eyes when he looked at her, a way he found excuses to spend time in the kitchen talking to her while she worked. Small gestures that suggested his interest went beyond the professional. Martha tried not to notice. She tried to keep her own growing feelings locked away where they could not cause problems. Vincent Holloway was a successful rancher, respected throughout the county, with his choice of any unmarried woman in California. The fact that he was kind to his damaged housekeeper meant nothing beyond his good character. 2 weeks after Martha's arrival at the ranch, everything changed. She was in the garden behind the house, planting herbs she had brought from her old home, when she heard raised voices from the direction of the barn. Martha stood, shading her eyes against the afternoon sun, and saw 3 men on horses confronting Vincent in the ranch yard. Even from a distance, she could tell the conversation was hostile. Martha hurried toward the barn, arriving in time to hear one of the men, a rough-looking character with a scarred face, say, "You owe us, Holloway. You cannot just pretend that business is finished." "I owe you nothing, Garrett," Vincent said, his voice cold. "I paid off every cent 2 years ago. You have no claim on my ranch." "That is not how Mr. Blackthorne sees it," Garrett said. "He says interest has been accumulating. You owe him $5,000, and he wants it by the end of the month." "Blackthorne is a criminal and a liar," Vincent said flatly. "I will not pay him another penny." Garrett's hand moved toward his gun, and Martha's heart stopped. But before anyone could draw a weapon, Thomas Parker and 2 other ranch hands appeared from the barn, rifles held casually but unmistakably ready. "Problem here, boss?" Thomas asked. Garrett looked at the armed ranch hands and apparently decided against violence. "Blackthorne will not forget this, Holloway. He always collects his debts one way or another." The 3 men rode off, and Vincent stood watching them go with a grim expression. Martha approached cautiously. "Vincent, what was that about?" He turned to her, and she saw worry in his eyes for the first time since she had met him. "An old problem I thought I had buried. When I first bought this ranch, I did not have quite enough money to cover all the startup costs. I made the mistake of borrowing from Cyrus Blackthorne, a man who runs half the illegal operations in this part of California. I paid him back in full 2 years ago with the interest we agreed on. Now he is trying to claim I owe more." "Can he do that?" Martha asked. "Not legally," Vincent said. "But Blackthorne does not operate within the law. He is a dangerous man, Martha. I need you to promise me something. If those men ever come back when I am not here, I want you to hide. Do not try to confront them." "I am not helpless," Martha said, bristling slightly. "I know you are not," Vincent said. "But these men are ruthless. Please, Martha, promise me." The fear in his voice, the genuine concern, made her nod reluctantly. "I promise." But the incident left her unsettled. That evening, after a quiet dinner where Vincent seemed distracted, Martha found herself unable to sleep. She finally gave up and went downstairs, intending to make some tea. She found Vincent already in the kitchen, sitting at the table with a whiskey glass in his hand. "Cannot sleep either?" he asked. "Too much on my mind," Martha admitted. She put the kettle on and sat across from him. "Vincent, how dangerous is this Blackthorne really?" He was quiet for a long moment. "Dangerous enough that I have been trying to figure out how to keep you safe if things get worse. I am thinking of sending you back to Murphy's temporarily, just until I settle this." "No," Martha said immediately. "I will not go back there." "Martha, if Blackthorne decides to pressure me through violence, then we will face it together," Martha interrupted. "Vincent, do you know what my life was like before I came here? I was slowly dying inside, suffocating under the weight of 1,000 small cruelties. You gave me a chance at something better. I will not run away at the first sign of trouble." Vincent stared at her, his green eyes intense in the lamplight. "You should not have to face danger because of my past mistakes." "We all have past mistakes," Martha said. "And you have been nothing but kind to me. Let me help. I may be unfit for marriage according to the ladies' social committee, but I am not useless." "You are the furthest thing from useless," Vincent said, his voice rough. He reached across the table and took her hand, his touch warm and solid. "You are brave and resourceful, and so much stronger than you realize. Any man would be lucky to have you as his wife, Martha Ashford. The people who called you unfit are blind fools." Martha's breath caught. His hand engulfed hers, and she could feel the calluses from years of hard work, the strength in his fingers. "Vincent." "I know I should not say these things," Vincent said. "You work for me, and it is not proper, but I cannot stop thinking about you, Martha. From the moment I saw you pull those children to safety without a thought for your own well-being, I have not been able to get you out of my mind. You are everything I have been looking for and thought I would never find." Martha felt tears prick her eyes. The town was right about one thing. I am different. I do not fit the expected mold. Any man who chooses me will face criticism and gossip. Then I will face it, Vincent said simply, because proving them all wrong would be the greatest pleasure of my life. The words hung in the air between them, a promise and a declaration. Martha felt something break open inside her, all the walls she had built around her heart crumbling under the weight of his sincerity. "I am falling in love with you," she whispered. "I have been trying not to, but I cannot help it." Vincent stood and moved around the table, pulling her gently to her feet. He cupped her face in his hands, his touch reverent. "Then stop trying. Let yourself fall, Martha. I will catch you, I promise." When he kissed her, it felt like coming home. His lips were soft but certain, moving against hers with a tenderness that made her heart ache. Martha wrapped her arms around his neck, losing herself in the sensation, in the rightness of being held by someone who valued her exactly as she was. They broke apart slowly, both breathing hard. Vincent rested his forehead against hers. "I want to marry you," he said. "I know it is fast, but I am certain. I have never been more certain of anything in my life. Will you consider it? Will you think about becoming my wife?" "Yes," Martha said, then laughed at his surprised expression. "Not think about it, just yes. Yes, I will marry you, Vincent Holloway." His answering smile was brilliant, transforming his entire face. He kissed her again, deeper this time, and Martha felt joy surge through her like a physical force. She was going to marry this man. This good, kind, strong man who saw her value when no one else did. But their happiness was short-lived. 3 days later, Garrett and a dozen armed men rode onto the ranch. Martha was hanging laundry when she heard the thunder of hooves. She dropped the sheet she was holding and ran toward the house, remembering Vincent's warning. But before she could reach the door, Garrett blocked her path. "Well, well," he said with an unpleasant smile. "Holloway has himself a pretty housekeeper. Blackthorn will be very interested to hear about you." "Let her go." Vincent's voice cracked like a whip across the yard. He emerged from the barn with Thomas and the other ranch hands, all armed. "Your quarrel is with me, Garrett. Leave her out of it." "That is not how this works," Garrett said. He grabbed Martha's arm, pulling her against him with a knife suddenly pressed to her throat. "Here is how this will go, Holloway. You are going to sign over half ownership of this ranch to Mr. Blackthorn, or I am going to cut your woman and leave her to bleed out in your yard." Martha felt the cold metal against her skin and forced herself to stay calm. She could feel Garrett's breathing, smell the whiskey on his breath. Vincent's face had gone white. "Do not hurt her," Vincent said, his voice carefully controlled. "I will give Blackthorn whatever he wants. Just let her go." "Vincent, no," Martha said. "Do not give up your ranch, not for me." "Shut up," Garrett growled, pressing the knife harder. Martha felt a sting as the blade broke skin. What happened next occurred in seconds but felt like hours. Martha remembered something her father had taught her when she was young, a trick for getting away from someone holding you. She went suddenly limp, her full weight dropping in Garrett's grip. Surprised, he loosened his hold for just a moment. It was enough. Martha drove her elbow backward into his stomach with all her strength, then ducked away from the knife. Gunfire erupted. Martha hit the ground and covered her head, hearing shouts and the thunder of more hooves. When silence finally fell, she looked up to see Vincent kneeling beside her, his hands running over her frantically. "Are you hurt? Martha, talk to me. Are you hurt?" "I am fine," she managed. "Just a scratch on my neck." The scratch was bleeding more than she wanted to admit, but Vincent was already pressing his bandana against it. Around them, Martha saw that Garrett and his men had fled. driven off by the arrival of Sheriff Daniel Morgan and 6 deputies from Murphy's. "Got your message," the sheriff said, dismounting. "Looks like we arrived just in time." "You sent for the sheriff?" Martha asked Vincent. "2 days ago," Vincent said. "After Garrett's first visit, I was not going to wait for Blackthorn to strike again." He helped Martha to her feet, keeping one arm around her protectively. "Is she really all right, Daniel? She was bleeding." The sheriff examined Martha's neck with experienced efficiency. "She will be fine. Clean cut, not deep. You were lucky, Miss Ashford." "She was brave," Vincent corrected. "And smart. That move you made, Martha, where did you learn that?" "My father," Martha said. "He believed women should know how to protect themselves." "Your father was a wise man," the sheriff said. He turned to Vincent. "We will need statements from both of you. And I am going to need everything you know about Cyrus Blackthorn's operations. With your testimony, we might finally be able to build a case against him." The next several hours passed in a blur of questions and statements. The sheriff promised to post deputies at the ranch until Blackthorn was apprehended. By the time everyone left, Martha was exhausted and shaking with delayed reaction. Vincent led her inside and sat her down in the parlor, bringing her a glass of brandy. "Drink this." She obeyed, feeling the liquor burn down her throat. Vincent sat beside her and pulled her against his chest, his arms wrapped tightly around her. "I thought I was going to lose you," he said, his voice rough with emotion. "When I saw that knife at your throat, I would have given him anything." "Everything. The ranch means nothing compared to you." "You cannot give up what you have built," Martha said. "Not for anyone." "I can and would for you," Vincent said. He tilted her face up to look at him. "Do you understand what you mean to me, Martha? You are my future, my hope, my heart." "I love you. I love you too," Martha whispered. "So much it terrifies me." "Then let us be terrified together," Vincent said. He kissed her forehead, her cheeks, her lips with infinite gentleness. "As soon as it is safe, I want to marry you properly. I want the whole town to see me claim you as my wife. I want to prove every single person who called you unfit absolutely and completely wrong." Despite everything, Martha smiled. "That sounds wonderful." 2 weeks later, Sheriff Morgan sent word that Cyrus Blackthorn had been arrested in San Francisco, along with most of his operation. The threat was over. Vincent wasted no time. The next day, he rode into Murphy's and made arrangements with Reverend James Fletcher for a wedding. The news spread through town like wildfire. Martha heard all about it from Thomas, who had gone with Vincent and returned with an amused expression. "You should have seen it," Thomas told her as she prepared dinner. Vincent walked right up to Mrs. Pritchard in front of the general store and told her she was invited to his wedding to you. She about fell over. Then he told Violet Henderson that you would make a far better wife than she could ever dream of being, because you had courage and character instead of just pretty dresses and a mean spirit. Martha felt her cheeks burn. "He did not say that." "He absolutely did," Thomas confirmed. "And there is more. He announced to everyone on Main Street that any person who insulted you from this day forward would answer to him personally. I think half the town is scandalized and the other half is impressed." Martha sat down heavily. "He is going to face so much criticism for this." "He does not care," Thomas said. "And honestly, Miss Ashford, most of the men in town are on his side. It is mostly the ladies' committee and their husbands making noise. The rest of us think Vincent is lucky to have found you." The wedding was set for Saturday, June 15th, 1872. Martha had 1 week to prepare, which seemed both too long and not long enough. She had nothing appropriate to wear, but Mrs. Rebecca Torres arrived 2 days before the wedding with a beautiful dress she had made. "For you, Mrs. Torres said, presenting the cream-colored gown with delicate lace at the collar and cuffs. "You saved my son's life. This is small repayment." Martha tried to protest, but Mrs. Torres would not hear it. "You deserve beauty on your wedding day. Please let me give you this." Martha accepted with tears in her eyes, humbled by the kindness. She tried on the dress and found it fit perfectly, the color highlighting her dark blonde hair and brown eyes. On Saturday morning, Martha woke in her room at the ranch for the last time as an unmarried woman. Tonight she would sleep in Vincent's room as his wife. The thought made her nervous and excited in equal measure. Vincent had spent the previous night at Thomas's cabin to observe propriety, leaving Martha alone in the big house. She bathed carefully, styled her hair with hands that shook slightly, and put on the beautiful dress Mrs. Torres had made. When she looked at herself in the mirror, she barely recognized the woman staring back. She looked happy. She looked loved. Thomas drove her to town in the ranch wagon, looking uncomfortable in his Sunday best. "You look beautiful, Miss Ashford. Vincent is a lucky man." "I think I am the lucky one," Martha said honestly. The church was surprisingly full when they arrived. Martha recognized many faces: Dr. Morrison, Mrs. Torres and her family, several ranchers Vincent did business with, all of Vincent's ranch hands. But there were also plenty of empty pews, notable absences that spoke volumes about who had refused to attend. Then Martha saw Vincent waiting at the altar, and everyone else ceased to matter. He wore a black suit she had never seen before, his dark hair neatly combed. His green eyes locked on her with such intensity that she felt it like a physical touch. As she walked down the aisle on Thomas's arm, Vincent's expression transformed into something that took her breath away. He looked at her like she was the most precious thing he had ever seen. Reverend Fletcher performed the ceremony with solemn dignity. Martha barely heard the words, too focused on Vincent's hands holding hers, his voice steady and certain as he made his vows. "I, Vincent Holloway, take you, Martha Ashford, to be my lawfully wedded wife. I promise to love you, honor you, and cherish you for all my days. I promise to stand beside you against anyone who would diminish your worth. I promise to prove every day for the rest of our lives that they were wrong about you, and I was right." The last part was not in the traditional vows, and several people in the congregation gasped. But Martha felt tears stream down her face as she made her own promises, her voice clear despite her emotion. When Reverend Fletcher pronounced them man and wife, Vincent kissed her with such tenderness and joy that Martha forgot they were in a church full of people. She kissed him back, pouring everything she felt into the connection, claiming him as he was claiming her. The reception was held at the ranch, under the oak trees Vincent's men had strung with lanterns. Mrs. Torres and several other women had prepared food despite not being part of the ladies' social committee. There was music and dancing and genuine happiness from everyone present. Martha danced with Vincent, with Thomas, with Dr. Morrison, feeling lighter than air. As the sun set and the lanterns cast golden light over everything, Vincent pulled Martha away from the crowd, leading her to a quiet spot overlooking the hills. "Happy?" he asked, wrapping his arms around her from behind. "Happier than I ever thought possible," Martha said honestly. She leaned back against his solid warmth, feeling safe and cherished. "Thank you for this, for all of it, for seeing me when no one else would." "I did not just see you," Vincent said, pressing a kiss to her temple. "I recognized you, the woman I had been waiting for my whole life. The partner I needed, the love I thought I would never find." He turned her to face him, his expression serious in the fading light. "You are not unfit for marriage, Martha Holloway. You are perfect for it. You are perfect for me." Martha pulled him down for a kiss that quickly deepened into something urgent and needy. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Vincent rested his forehead against hers. "We should probably get back to our guests," he said. though he made no move to let her go. "Probably," Martha agreed, also not moving. They stood there for another long moment, simply holding each other as the stars began to appear overhead. Finally, they walked back hand in hand to rejoin the celebration, but Martha knew something had fundamentally shifted. She was no longer alone. She was no longer defined by other people's narrow judgments. She was loved, claimed, and valued exactly as she was. The party continued late into the night. By the time the last guest departed, Martha was exhausted but glowing with happiness. Vincent dismissed the ranch hands to the bunkhouse and locked the main house, then turned to Martha with an expression that made her heart race. "Alone at last, Mrs. Holloway," he said softly. "Alone at last," Martha echoed. Vincent picked her up effortlessly, carrying her up the stairs to his bedroom as she laughed and protested half-heartedly. He set her down gently inside and closed the door, then simply looked at her for a long moment. "What?" Martha asked, suddenly nervous. "I am just appreciating how beautiful you are," Vincent said, "and how lucky I am that you said yes." He helped her undress with careful hands, his touch reverent as he revealed her piece by piece. Martha had been nervous about this part, uncertain of what to expect, but Vincent was infinitely patient and gentle. He made love to her with a tenderness that brought tears to her eyes, murmuring endearments against her skin, making her feel worshipped and adored. Afterward, they lay tangled together in his bed, now their bed, and Martha felt a peace she had never known. Vincent traced lazy patterns on her bare shoulder, his breathing slow and content. "What are you thinking?" he asked. "That I cannot believe this is real," Martha admitted. "That 3 weeks ago I was alone and unwanted, and now I am here with you." "You were never unwanted," Vincent said firmly. "You were simply waiting for the right person to recognize your worth, and I will spend the rest of my life making sure you never doubt it again." "I love you," Martha said. "More than I have words for." "Then I will just have to show you every day how much I love you in return," Vincent said, pulling her closer. They fell asleep wrapped in each other's arms, the beginning of their life together stretching out before them full of promise. The months that followed were some of the happiest of Martha's life. She threw herself into running the ranch household with efficiency and joy, transforming the house into a real home. Vincent proved to be everything she could have hoped for in a husband: loving, respectful, passionate, and endlessly supportive. He encouraged her to continue reading and learning, often discussing books with her in the evenings. He valued her opinions on ranch matters and frequently asked her advice. The town's reaction to their marriage was mixed. The ladies' social committee remained coldly distant, but Martha found she did not care. Other women, like Mrs. Torres, sought out her friendship. Several ranchers' wives, impressed by her competence and Vincent's obvious devotion, began inviting her to gatherings. Slowly, Martha built a new social circle based on genuine respect rather than conformity. Vincent kept his promise about proving the town wrong. Whenever anyone made a snide comment about Martha in his presence, he addressed it immediately and forcefully. After he punched Harold Henderson, Violet's father, in the general store for calling Martha an unfortunate choice, most people learned to keep their criticisms to themselves. "You did not have to hit him," Martha said that evening, cleaning his scraped knuckles. "Yes, I did," Vincent said calmly. "No one insults my wife, not now, not ever." By autumn, Martha discovered she was pregnant. She told Vincent one evening after dinner, nervous despite knowing he would be happy. She need not have worried. Vincent swept her into his arms, kissing her face all over until she laughed. "A baby," he kept saying. "We are going to have a baby." "Are you happy?" Martha asked. "Happy does not begin to cover it," Vincent said. He placed his hand gently on her still flat stomach. You have given me everything, Martha. A home, a partner, and now a child. I am the most blessed man in California. The pregnancy was relatively easy, though Martha tired more quickly than usual. Vincent became almost comically protective, insisting she rest frequently and refusing to let her do heavy work. Thomas and the other ranch hands treated her like spun glass, which amused Martha even as it touched her. Dr. Morrison checked on her regularly, pronouncing both mother and baby healthy. You are doing wonderfully, Martha. The baby should arrive in late April or early May. Martha spent the winter preparing the nursery in a sunny room down the hall from their bedroom. Vincent built a beautiful cradle from oak, sanding it smooth and carving their initials into the headboard. Mrs. Torres and several other women provided tiny clothes and blankets, their previous coldness forgotten in the excitement of a new baby. On April 28, 1873, Martha went into labor. It was long and difficult, but Vincent stayed beside her the entire time, holding her hand and encouraging her. Dr. Morrison delivered a healthy baby boy just after dawn. A son, Vincent said, his voice choked with emotion as he held the tiny bundle. We have a son, Martha. They named him Samuel Thomas Holloway after Vincent's late father and his loyal foreman. Samuel had his father's dark hair and his mother's brown eyes, and from the moment he was born, he was adored. Vincent proved to be an excellent father, doting on Samuel with the same devotion he showed Martha. He would spend hours holding the baby, talking to him about the ranch, singing terrible off-key lullabies that made Martha laugh. Watching her strong, capable husband reduced to mush by their infant son filled Martha's heart to overflowing. You are going to spoil him, Martha said one evening, finding Vincent rocking a sleeping Samuel. Absolutely I am, Vincent said, not the least bit ashamed. He is perfect. Look at him, Martha. We made this perfect little person. As Samuel grew from infant to toddler, the ranch prospered. Vincent expanded his cattle operation, hiring more men and purchasing adjacent land. Martha managed the household and the books, revealing a talent for finances that made Vincent laugh. You are better at this than I am, he said, reviewing her neat columns of numbers. I should have put you in charge of the accounts from the beginning. I like being useful, Martha said. You are not just useful, Vincent corrected, pulling her into his lap despite her protests about the ledgers. You are essential. To me, to Samuel, to this entire operation. I could not do any of this without you. When Samuel was 2, Martha became pregnant again. This time she was less nervous, more confident. The pregnancy was easier than the first, and in January of 1876, she delivered a healthy daughter they named Elizabeth Ann Holloway. Elizabeth looked like her mother, with blonde hair and brown eyes that seemed to notice everything. She was a calm baby, content to watch the world around her with solemn interest. Samuel adored his baby sister, constantly wanting to help care for her. The years passed in a blur of happiness and hard work. The ranch continued to thrive. Samuel grew into a serious, thoughtful boy who loved books as much as horses. Elizabeth proved to have her mother's practical nature and her father's determination. In 1878, Martha gave birth to twin boys, William and James, who were whirlwinds of energy from the moment they could crawl. The house that had once been too large for one lonely man now rang with children's laughter and the chaos of family life. Martha often found herself standing in the kitchen, covered in flour from baking, listening to the sounds of her children playing while Vincent's voice rumbled as he read to them, and feeling overcome with gratitude for how completely her life had transformed. One evening in late 1880, after the children were finally asleep, Martha and Vincent sat on the porch watching the sunset. Vincent's arm was around her shoulders, her head resting against his chest. "You remember the day we met?" Vincent asked. "In your garden after the robbery." "I remember thinking you were being absurdly kind to a woman the town had rejected," Martha said. "I was being smart," Vincent corrected. "I recognized quality when I saw it, even if no one else did." "You changed my life," Martha said softly. "You gave me everything I thought I could never have." "No," Vincent said. "You gave me everything. You took a successful but empty existence and filled it with love and meaning. You gave me children and partnership and a reason to wake up excited every morning." He kissed the top of her head. "They called you unfit for marriage, Martha. But you are the best wife, the best mother, and the best partner any man could ask for. I proved them wrong, but you did all the real work." Martha tilted her face up to kiss him properly. "We proved them wrong together." "Together," Vincent agreed. "Always together." The children continued to grow. Samuel took to ranch work naturally, riding out with his father as soon as he was old enough. Elizabeth showed an aptitude for numbers even greater than her mother's, spending hours helping Martha with the books. The twins were inseparable hellions who kept everyone on their toes. In 1882, Vincent expanded the ranch again, making it one of the largest operations in Calaveras County. The Holloway name became synonymous with quality cattle and fair dealing. People came from across California to buy Vincent's stock. Martha's reputation in town also transformed completely. The woman once called unfit for marriage was now pointed to as an example of perfect wifehood. The ladies' social committee, which had excluded her years earlier, now desperately wanted her participation. Martha politely declined their invitations, preferring to spend her time with the women who had been kind to her from the beginning. "You ever regret not being part of that social circle?" Vincent asked once. "Never," Martha said firmly. "I would rather have genuine friends than false ones. Mrs. Torres and the others value me for who I am, not for the status my association might bring them." Vincent smiled and kissed her. "One more reason I married the right woman." Years continued to pass in steady happiness. The children grew and thrived. Samuel went to college in San Francisco, studying agriculture and ranch management before returning to help his father. Elizabeth married a young lawyer from Angel's Camp, a good man who treated her with the respect she deserved. The twins both chose to stay on the ranch, working alongside their father and older brother. In 1890, Martha sat on the porch holding her first grandchild, Samuel's daughter Catherine. At 40 years old, Martha had gray threading through her blonde hair and lines around her eyes from years of smiling. Vincent, at 44, had silver at his temples but was still strong and vigorous. "Another generation of Holloways," Vincent said, sitting beside her and gazing at his granddaughter with besotted love. "We built something real, Martha, something that will last." "We did," Martha agreed. "From two lonely people to all of this, it seems impossible sometimes." "Nothing about it was impossible," Vincent said. "It just took finding each other. Everything else followed naturally." That night, after Catherine had been returned to Samuel's house and the ranch had settled into quiet, Martha and Vincent lay together in the bed they had shared for 18 years. Vincent traced the familiar lines of her face, his touch gentle. "I love you more now than the day I married you," he said. "I did not think that was possible, but every year with you proves me wrong." "I love you too," Martha said. "Thank you for seeing me when no one else would. Thank you for proving them all wrong." "Thank you for letting me," Vincent said. "Thank you for taking a chance on a cowboy with more determination than sense." Martha laughed. "Your determination is one of your best qualities." They made love with the easy familiarity of long partnership, and afterward lay tangled together, content in the life they had built. As years turned into decades, the Holloway Ranch became a local institution. Samuel took over more of the day-to-day operations as Vincent aged, but the older man remained active well into his 60s. Martha continued to manage the household and finances with the same efficiency she always had, now with Elizabeth's help when her daughter visited. The children all married and had children of their own. The ranch house that had once been too large for one man now barely contained the extended family during holiday gatherings. Martha often found herself surrounded by children and grandchildren, the noise and chaos a far cry from her lonely existence in Murphy's decades earlier. In 1895, Murphy's held a celebration for its 50th anniversary as an incorporated town. The planning committee asked Vincent and Martha to be guests of honor, recognizing their contributions to the community. Martha almost declined, remembering the cruelty of her youth, but Vincent convinced her to accept. They arrived at the celebration in their finest clothes, their children and grandchildren surrounding them. The entire town turned out. Martha saw faces from her past, many of them aged and softened by time. Mrs. Pritchard, now elderly and widowed, approached hesitantly. "Mrs. Holloway," she said, "I wanted to apologize for how I treated you when you were young. I was wrong about you. You have become everything a woman should be." Martha looked at the older woman for a long moment. She could be gracious or she could be honest. She chose honesty. "I was always everything a woman should be, Mrs. Pritchard. You simply could not see past your own narrow definitions, but I appreciate the apology nonetheless." Mrs. Pritchard looked startled, then nodded slowly. "You are right. I was narrow-minded and cruel. I am sorry." It was not a perfect reconciliation, but it was closure. Martha found she did not need the town's validation anymore. She had built a life of meaning and love without their approval. The mayor gave a speech praising the Holloway's contributions to the community. Vincent was asked to say a few words. He stood before the crowd, silver-haired and distinguished, and Martha's heart swelled with love for him. 23 years ago, this town decided my wife was unfit for marriage," Vincent said bluntly, causing a ripple of uncomfortable murmurs. "They called her strange, unsuitable, unmarriageable. I stood before many of you and said I would prove you all wrong. Today, I think I have done that. Martha Holloway is the finest woman I have ever known. She has been my partner in building one of the most successful ranches in California. She has raised 4 exceptional children who are all contributing members of this community. She has shown me what real strength and courage look like every single day for over 2 decades." He turned to look directly at Martha, his green eyes still as intense as the day they met. "I did not prove you wrong about her, though. She did that herself, simply by being who she always was. I was just smart enough to recognize it." The crowd applauded, and Martha stood to join her husband, taking his offered hand. They walked through the celebration together, greeting neighbors and friends, their children and grandchildren surrounding them like a protective wall of love. That evening, back at the ranch, Martha and Vincent sat on the porch as they had countless times before. The sun was setting over the California hills, painting everything in shades of gold and amber. "Did today feel like vindication?" Vincent asked. "No," Martha said thoughtfully. "It felt like closure. I do not need their validation anymore. I have not for years, but it was nice to hear the apologies nonetheless." "You are a better person than I am," Vincent said. "I wanted to say much harsher things to Mrs. Pritchard and her ilk." Martha laughed. "You have spent 23 years defending my honor. I think you have earned the right to be a bit harsh." "Only a bit," Vincent teased. They sat in comfortable silence, watching the day end. Martha thought about the terrified young woman she had been, the one who thought her life was over when the town rejected her. She thought about the lonely house on Oak Street and the desperate hope she had felt when Vincent offered her employment. She thought about every moment between then and now, every challenge overcome, every joy shared. "What are you thinking about?" Vincent asked, always attuned to her moods. "About how one person's kindness changed everything," Martha said. "About how you saw value where others saw failure. About how lucky I am to have spent my life with you." "I am the lucky one," Vincent said, squeezing her hand. "I got to prove the whole world wrong by loving you. That is a privilege beyond measure." As darkness fell and stars began to emerge overhead, Martha and Vincent remained on the porch, holding hands and watching their world together. Inside the house, their families' voices drifted out through open windows. Grandchildren's laughter, Samuel's deep voice telling stories, Elizabeth's quick wit making everyone laugh. They had built this together. From rejection and loneliness, they had created something beautiful and lasting. Martha Ashford, once declared unfit for marriage, had become Martha Holloway, beloved wife, mother, grandmother, and partner. And Vincent Holloway had kept his promise, proving every single person who doubted her completely and utterly wrong. But more than that, they had found each other. Two souls who fit together perfectly, who brought out the best in each other, who built a life of love and meaning against all odds. That was the real victory, not proving the town wrong but finding the right person to share life with. "Ready to go inside?" Vincent asked as the evening grew cooler. "In a minute," Martha said, savoring the moment. "I want to remember this." The peace, the happiness, the feeling of everything being exactly right. Vincent pulled her closer, wrapping his arm around her shoulders. "Everything is exactly right. It has been since the day you said yes to me." They sat together under the stars, two people who had found love when the world said it was impossible, who had built a family and a legacy from courage and determination. The town had called her unfit. The cowboy had said he would prove them wrong. And together, they had done exactly that, creating a love story that would echo through generations. Finally, as the night deepened and the air grew cold, they stood and walked inside together, hand in hand, to the warmth of home and family. Behind them, the California hills stood dark against the starlit sky, silent witnesses to a love that had defied expectations and created something extraordinary. The house was full of light and laughter as they entered. Grandchildren ran to greet them, pulling them toward the dining table where the family had gathered for a late supper. Martha looked around at the faces she loved, at the life she and Vincent had created, and felt her heart overflow with gratitude. They sat at the head of the table, Vincent on one side and Martha on the other, their children and grandchildren filling every seat. Samuel raised his glass in a toast. "To my parents," he said, "who taught us all what real love looks like. Who showed us that the only opinions that matter are the ones from people who truly see us. Who built something wonderful from nothing but determination and devotion." To Vincent and Martha, everyone chorused, raising their glasses. Vincent looked at Martha across the table, and she saw everything in his eyes, the love that had never wavered, the respect that had only grown, the partnership that had sustained them through every challenge. She smiled at him, and he smiled back, and in that moment, Martha knew that every hardship she had endured before meeting him had been worth it to arrive at this perfect life. They called her unfit for marriage. The cowboy said he would prove them all wrong. And he had, with every day of their life together, with every moment of love and respect and partnership. But the real truth was simpler and more profound. They had saved each other. Martha had given Vincent a home and a family, filling his empty existence with meaning. Vincent had given Martha the gift of being truly seen and valued for who she was. Together, They had created something neither could have built alone. As the evening wore on and eventually came to a close, as children and grandchildren departed for their own homes, Martha and Vincent found themselves alone again. They climbed the stairs to their bedroom, moving with the careful steps of age but still together, still connected after all these years. Vincent helped Martha with the buttons on her dress, his fingers less nimble than they once were but still gentle. She helped him with his collar, smiling at the familiar ritual. They had done this thousands of times, and yet it still felt intimate and special. In bed, they curled together as they always had, Martha's head on Vincent's shoulder, his arm around her. They fit together perfectly, two pieces of the same whole. "Thank you for this life," Martha whispered into the darkness. "Thank you for sharing it with me," Vincent replied, kissing her forehead. "I love you, Martha Holloway, today, tomorrow, and forever." "I love you too," Martha said. "Forever and always." They fell asleep together, two people who had found each other against all odds and built a love that would endure beyond their lifetimes. In the morning, they would wake and continue the life they had created. But for now, in the peaceful darkness, they simply held each other, content in the knowledge that they had proven everyone wrong in the most beautiful way possible. The story could have ended with rejection and loneliness. Instead, it became a testament to the power of seeing beyond society's narrow definitions, of recognizing value where others see only difference, of choosing love over conformity. Martha and Vincent Holloway lived the rest of their days together in happiness, surrounded by the family they created and the love they nurtured. And when their story was told to future generations, it was not a tale of a woman who was broken and a man who fixed her. It was the story of two complete people who found each other and chose to build something extraordinary together. It was a story of courage and defiance, and the simple revolutionary act of loving someone exactly as they are. They called her unfit for marriage. The cowboy said he would prove them all wrong. And together, they created a love story that proved the only thing that truly matters is finding someone who sees you, values you, and chooses you every single day. That was the real victory, and it was theirs to keep forever.